I was incredibly fortunate to meet Christmas Humphreys at the London Buddhist Society when I was just 16 years old. I've been persuaded to join the Buddhist Society by my school teacher, who himself was a Buddhist. He studied Zen Buddhism, and he was also a published poet. So he encouraged me to join the society. So I joined the society with an introduction to Buddhism or meditation class in about 1967. And I went on to study Zen Buddhism initially, and I had two teachers there, one of whom was Christmas Humphreys. Now, I didn't know who he was initially, but I soon found out that he was the person who'd actually introduced Buddhism to England in the 1950s or 40s, something like that. Well, Christmas was, sounds funny when you say Christmas, that's his first name. Christmas was very much the typical English gentleman who had studied law and had become an eminent judge, very high up. It seemed slightly incongruous to have this tall, extremely English academic teaching meditation and Buddhist principles. He was very much old school, as you can imagine. But he had such, I guess you'd say, in-depth understanding that it didn't seem to matter who he was and his background. He really knew his stuff. Now, he also encouraged me to study other areas of philosophy, psychology, including the occult, which quite surprised me, as I had since I was a teenager, I had a keen interest in magic, as a lot of kids have, So I don't quite know whether he somehow recognized this in me, or whether this was just another interest of his, but it somehow made him seem even more charismatic in my eyes as a young teenager, with this eminent person who introduced Buddhism into England. My goodness, what better teacher could you have? My lasting memory of Christmas Humphreys is of extremely long discussions and drinking lots and lots of tea, which is what the English do in their societies, in the basement of the Buddhist Society in Eccleston Square, with many elderly middle-class ladies with the kind of blue rinse hairstyles, all talking very softly. Very nice. This Buddhism is very nice. Let's have some more meditation, shall we? Sipping their tea in a very English way. That was my experience of being in that environment at the time. It was, in fact, this very strange, incongruous sense of being in a very privileged group of people who seemed to be playing at being Buddhist with their tea. Mustn't talk too loud. That made me decide to search for Buddhism elsewhere. So I'm very grateful to my experience there, and I left the Buddhist Society to search further. Although I did actually return to the society many, many years later. Maybe that was nostalgia, I don't know. While I was there, I think it was the early 70s or so, I was lucky enough to meet the Dalai Lama at the society on his very first visit to England. And that was thanks to Christmas Humphreys. So when I met the Dalai Lama again, a second time in the 1980s, that was at Cambridge University, it helped that we'd met many years before, so I could get in and have an introduction to meet him a second time. Although he didn't remember me, why should he? Looking back, I guess I feel I missed really many opportunities during my time of having Christmas Humphreys as my teacher. When you have someone like that, you don't realize until it's too late, time passes. Mainly because there were so many questions that I would have today loved to have asked him. Well, he was a judge. And there were times when he had to deliver the death sentence. You know, and I could never figure out how he was able to carry out this job and at the same time be a Buddhist that condemns taking life. Even now, I don't know. You know, I just don't know how he could have done that. The two just don't seem to go together. All I know is that as a teenager, I felt that he was my mentor. And I've had a few, thank you. And he pointed the way along the path for me, initially to Zen Buddhism, and then later to Tibetan Buddhism, and then eventually to Theravada Buddhism, which is my practice today. If Christmas Humphreys knew me or knew what had happened, my evolving over the years, he'd probably be very surprised. I was just a kid then. But I hope he'd be proud that I've been able to take the Buddhist principles that he taught me, initially he taught me, and use these to teach others how to have better lives. Because that's what it's about. It's about others. It's not about us. It's about others. Teaching them to have better lives.